and advertisers.
All right, what's going on, everybody? A very happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. It is Pushing the Limits. Yes, it's your boy Brian back at you. Could be watching on the Occupy Democrats Network, of course, the Washington Press Network, the FMAM Dial KSHP, my personal YouTube page, which is at PTL Radio Show. We're on TikTok. We're on X. We're everywhere. A lot of different social media platforms, and looking forward to making some announcements after the new year about some new platforms that I will be on. I'm really excited about that. So, big show lined up for you today. Some special guests, and we're going to give you an update on this 15-year-old who killed a teenager and a teacher in Wisconsin. Talk a little bit about that. Nancy Mace saying that aliens could be responsible for these drones. I'm not making this up. She appeared on the Clay Travis show earlier today, and she's worried that aliens are flying drones over New Jersey. We'll talk about that as well. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, again, the gun control issue out front and center. Republicans don't want to talk about it, but we have a former retired lieutenant who a lot of the people who listen to the show really enjoyed his commentary, so I invited him back on today. His name is Leonard Cardinale. He's a 25-year former retired police lieutenant, and he's going to be joining us in studio, talk a little bit about gun control. Okay. So what do we know at this time about this shooting? We know a 15-year-old student killed 2 people, injured 6 others, took her own life. The shooting occurred at the Abundant Life Christian School at around 11 a.m. yesterday. We're learning a little bit more information about the shooter and a little bit more about the victims, which I will get into. But I want to start by playing Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes talking about who this shooter was.
3 people, including the shooter, are dead. The shooter has now been identified as 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow, who went by the name Samantha. She was a student at the school, and evidence suggests she died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The official cause of death will be released by the Dane County Medical Examiner pending the conclusion of their examination. She was pronounced deceased while in transport to a local hospital.
Obviously, this is just a horrible, heinous crime, and this was a very, very troubled young teenager. And when you look at some of her social media posts, the things she said, she idolized the Columbine shooters and other school shooters. A very depressed and very troubled individual. Now, we're going to need to learn how she got her hands on this weapon. My understanding is that her parents are fully cooperating, which is a good thing. So I'm not going to pass judgment on any family members, at least not yet, until we learn more information. This was a very, very troubled teenager who took 2 innocent lives and shot a half a dozen others. It's awful. So as far as the deaths or injuries, I want to let Madison Police Chief Barnes explain that.
A teacher and a teenage student were pronounced dead at the scene at that school. 6 other students and a teacher were injured and taken to area hospitals. 2 students remain in critical condition and have life-threatening injuries. A teacher and 3 students were treated for non-life-threatening injuries. 2 of these have been released and discharged from the hospital. The other 2 survivors are considered to be in stable condition.
Let's continue to hope that everybody makes through this okay. I know that there are a couple people that are still in critical condition. There have been over 300 shootings on school properties in this country just this year. Think about that for a second. Over 300. The ones that get publicized the most are ones like these where there's loss of life, and I wish that wasn't the case. But I'm not even going to name the radio host, and forgive me, I was in my car yesterday flipping through the channels, and one conservative radio host who was just an absolute nitwit with 6 listeners, I think I was the 6th, did 10 minutes on this shooting and discussed how billionaires and Donald Trump's billionaires could help this problem by pushing money into something. Nothing about gun control, nothing about mental illness. I mean, these MAGA Republicans have no solutions to literally anything, especially gun control. Now, listen, I blame both parties for a lot of issues in this country, not this one. Yes, you could make the argument that our laws need to be stronger on the books. Can't blame Democrats for that one. I want you to imagine if you have a 6th grader at home or somebody around that age, and you drop them off at school, not knowing whether you're going to be able to pick them up or not. This is a 6th grader, a 12-year-old boy who had to witness what took place yesterday in his school firsthand. Listen to this 6th grader talk to the media.
You hear gunshots?
Yeah, I heard.
Tell me what happened.
We heard them, and then some people started crying, and then we just waited till the police came, and then they escorted us out to the church.
How many gunshots did you hear?
I heard 2.
And what were you thinking? What are you thinking
I
now?
was scared. Why did they do that? I was in English, and then they said it was a lockdown drill, so we went to the side of the building, and then we went to the church after they came and got us. And then we just waited. They gave us some food, and then waited for them to transport us to the hospital, get our moms and dads.
Now, that very smart and well-spoken 6th grader, because I give him a lot of credit, will never forget this for the rest of his life. Why? Imagine if you're a parent. This is a mother who has a child, also a 6th grader, that goes to this school where the shooting happened. Listen to what this mother has to say.
It's sad, to be home and then somebody call you and say your kids schooling like down and shooting and you didn't know where they are. And thank God they were safe. But the trauma, it's a lot because I'm sure they lost friends and teachers, which is not okay. And I don't think they will be okay for a long time. And I'm not.
My heart goes out to them. But this problem is not going anywhere. And the argument I hear from a lot of MAGA Republicans who could care less about the safety of your children in schools. They care about remaining in power. And you say, Brian, where's your evidence of that? Well, think about all the money they get from the NRA over the years, and they brag about their A-plus ratings from the NRA. What have they really done about gun control? Idiots like Ted Cruz and J.D. Vance saying we need to make our schools stronger. We need to harden our schools. We need to lock. I'm not making this up. After the Uvalde, Texas shooting, Ted Cruz, after the Uvalde, Texas shooting, talked about how the back door should have been locked. That 18-year-old who shot up all those innocent children who had just shot his grandmother in the face, and Ted Cruz is talking about a back door that should have been locked, as if somebody with an AR-15 who's willing to take his own life, who just shot his grandmother in the face and wants to kill a bunch of innocent children, isn't going to shoot through a locked door. That's what these idiots on the right come up with, if they have any solutions at all. Or you'll hear more guns make us safer, which we know is not true because per capita in this country, per 100 people, we have over 140 guns per 100 people. So if that was the case, we would be one of the safest, if not the safest country in the world when it comes to gun control. But that's not true. It's a lie. And they're imbeciles, and they hide behind the NRA, and they hide behind their right-wing talking points, and they say thoughts and prayers. Nancy Mace hasn't even tweeted about this, by the way. She's still tweeting about transgenders in women's bathrooms. And if they do tweet about it, they say thoughts and prayers. This should not be about politics or any of you morons out there. This should be about the American people. They're gunning down our kids in schools. We should be able to come together in some way and say, okay, we need to do something about this. But after the Sandy Hook shooting, I lost all faith in these Republicans. After the Sandy Hook shooting, when a bunch of 8 and 9-year-olds were killed, and Alex Jones was saying the parents were actors, Barack Obama tried to do everything he could. He tried to do everything he could to pass more gun legislation that I believe would help. Now, I hear this all the time on this show. Brian, you don't know what an assault weapon is. Okay, sure. Then what are your solutions? And silence, dead silence. I don't hear anything. Many of these people have no solutions. They want to call themselves gun experts, but they have no solutions. Well, guess what? I think about things before I talk about them on the air. And I've been talking about this literally for over 10 years on the air. I believe there are multiple things that we need to do as a society. Don't have to do all of them. It may not have stopped this school shooting from happening. But I list these things and I talk about these things all the time. Number one, red flag laws. They're inconsistent from state to state. Let me be clear. If your neighbor doesn't like you and he calls 911 and he lies about you and he says you threatened him, I'm not saying your gun should be taken away. It's a case-by-case basis. However, if you credibly threaten to kill somebody and it's on a voicemail or something, then you should not have the right to own a weapon or buy a weapon until you get clearance from a medical professional. But in state to state, it's very, very different. So, red flag laws need to be consistent throughout the country. It shouldn't be state by state. We should have laws throughout the country dealing with red flag laws. I believe the age should be 18 to 21. And for those of you out there that want to say, oh, but Brian, if you're 18, you could serve in the military. Yes, absolutely. But they're trained how to use the weapons. That brings me to number 3. We should have mandatory training. I'm not saying 80 hours of training. Give me a 2-hour class. Is that asking too much? In a 2-hour class, learn how to hold a weapon, learn how to store a weapon, learn how to load a weapon, and be safe about it. Give me 2 hours. Why is it that when we drive a car, we have to get our license, we're with an instructor, we have to pass a test? Yeah, I understand driving a car is a privilege and Second Amendment, Okay. Give me a 2-hour class to teach you the basics on how to shoot a gun and how to store a gun. How could anybody in society not be okay with that? How? That's number 3. Number 4, an assault weapons ban. An assault weapons ban fizzled out in the early 90s. Why? Yeah, you guessed it. Republicans allowed it to fizzle out. Look at gun violence when that assault weapons ban was put in place, and then look at the gun violence a couple of years later. Skyrocketed. That is not a coincidence. An assault weapons ban needs to be put in place. Now, I just listed 4 or 5 things. Give me 2 of those, and we're making great progress. The people that don't want to pass any of those things that I just discussed are not Democrats. They are Republicans. They're Republicans. When you hear any solutions from Republicans at all, and by the way, most people on the left would agree with those 4 or 5 things that I just mentioned, but let's talk about the right for a moment since I'm criticizing the right on this issue. What do we hear from the right? We hear more guns make us safer. That is abundantly a lie. It's not true. Again, we have 140 guns per 100 people in this country. If that was the case, why wouldn't gun violence in this country go way down? So that's a lie. More guns don't make us safer. We also hear from Republicans like J.D. Vance and the Ted Cruzes of the world that we need to harden our schools. Locking doors is going to stop somebody from shooting down a door that is willing to take their own life. Now, it's hard to have these conversations with people that have no common sense. It's very difficult. Example, more guns make us safer. Again, I repeat myself. I'm talking about legal guns in this country. I'm not even talking about illegal guns. We have about 140 guns in this country legally per 100 people. So if more guns made us safer, why wouldn't we be one of the safest countries in the world? We know it's the opposite. So it completely ruins anybody's argument that says, Brian, you're wrong. More guns do make us safer. It's not true. It's not true. And don't talk to me, oh, a criminal's going to get their hand on something, a knife. Well, let me ask you a question. God forbid. If you're at a music festival in this country, or even, God forbid, somebody that walks into a school and wants to kill a bunch of people, would you rather them have, God forbid, an AR-15 or a knife? It's the dumbest argument I've ever heard in my life. Assault weapons should only be put in the hands of law enforcement and our brave men and women in uniform. You don't need an assault weapon to defend yourself, okay? An army isn't coming to get you. You don't. And everybody, these constitutionalists, right? It's interesting. Those constitutionalists out there some of them voted for Donald Trump, who wants to rip up parts of the Constitution, by the way. So you're a hypocrite at a minimum. But if you want to talk about the Constitution, by the way, when it was okay to own human beings, that was when they had something called a musket. Okay? You're not going to kill 60 people like at the October 1 shooting in a span of like 45 seconds with a musket. Okay? Technology changes. Why it says a well-regulated militia. We don't have a well-regulated militia in this country. A 15-year-old was able to get her hands on a gun and kill a bunch of innocent people. A mentally deranged man was able to get thousands of rounds of ammunition, shooting from Mandalay Bay Casino, killing a bunch of innocent people who he didn't know, watching a country music festival. Okay? It didn't stop an 18-year-old in Uvalde, Texas, the day he turned 18, by the way, from legally going into a gun store, buying a lot of ammunition and a few AR-15s. Didn't stop the 18-year-old shooter at the supermarket in Buffalo either. The list goes on and on and on. We do not have a well-regulated militia. This is not what it should look like in society when it comes to guns. And we are not going to agree on everything. But if you can't even fundamentally agree with me right now that this is a major problem in this country, then you're not willing to, I'm not willing to have a conversation with you. If you're not willing to tell me that we have a gun violence problem in this country, yes, we have a violence problem in this country too, but we have a gun problem in this country. If you're not willing to even meet me there, we might disagree how we get there. We might disagree on things that I think we should do to limit shootings in this country. We could disagree on how we get there and have that conversation. Fine. But if you're not willing to look me in the eye and tell me we have a problem in this country when it comes to gun violence, then you are an imbecile and you are part of the problem. And that is many within the Republican Party today. I hear so many Republicans today say, well, a bad guy's going to get his hands on a gun, a bad guy or girl, they're going to find a way. So as if we should just put our hands up in the air and say, oh, well, there's really nothing we can do. It's so disingenuous. It's so ignorant. If you guys on the far right took 10% of the energy that you take attacking the trans community every day, lives would be saved. If you took 10% of the energy that you do in talking about banning books and talked about gun control, 10%, lives would be saved. Here's what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. During the political season, you hear a lot of campaign ads, right? Why we should vote for you. You hear it on the left, you hear it on the right, and quite frankly, it gets tiring, right, at times. Have you ever heard or watched a commercial, a campaign commercial, from somebody on the left bragging about their rating from the NRA? Have you ever seen somebody on the left shooting guns in a commercial? If it has happened, it's very rare. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say almost half the commercials that I hear from Republicans, they're shooting guns in their commercials. They're taking pictures, family photos during Christmas time with 3-year-olds holding AR-15s. We've seen it. Lauren Boebert has done it and others. How many times do you hear in a commercial from right-wing Republicans about their A+ rating from the NRA? Now, why am I bringing this up? Why is this important? I'll tell you why. There's a reason why they got an A+ rating from the NRA, because they don't want to put any laws on the books. They're getting paid by the NRA to keep their mouth shut. These MAGA Republicans care more about remaining in power, and they care more about their A+ rating from the NRA than they care about the security and the safety of the American people, in this case, children sitting in schools. They all have blood on their hands. We don't have to all agree how we get there. But to put our hands in the air and brag about an A+ rating from the NRA and do nothing after these shootings, these Republicans, now's not the time to talk about gun control. You're politicizing this. No, I'm not politicizing it at all. I want Republicans and Democrats to actually work together. And there is one side of the aisle that wants to put more laws on the books, and there is another side of the aisle that doesn't even want to have the conversation. In fact, I'll take it even a step further to show you how despicable some of these MAGA Republicans are. After a school shooting, a week after a school shooting a few years ago, there were multiple members of Congress that wore AR-15 pins. No, they weren't wearing American flag pins. They wore AR-15 pins in the halls of Congress. George Santos was one of them. Another gentleman who did that is the same guy who said January 6th was a tourist visit. I'm forgetting his name at the moment. Several members of Congress wore AR-15 pins. I'm wondering, if you lost a child or lost anybody at the hands of somebody with a gun violence, I wonder how you feel about members of Congress wearing AR-15 pins. Folks, does it get any worse than that? It's the same conversation every time we have a mass shooting. Thoughts and prayers. More guns make us safer. Bad people are always going to get their hands on guns. Can you imagine for a moment if there was a mass casualty event? A mass casualty event involving a gun, and a Democrat the next day wore an AR-15 pin in the halls of Congress? You would call that person despicable. But it's not happening on the left. It's happening on the right. And today, we mourn the death of an innocent teenager and a teacher and multiple others that were injured in yet what is another school shooting. And if you went on social media yesterday and today, many on the far right on X, which is a cesspool of hatred and bigotry, by the way, were spreading rumors that the shooter is transgender. Now, why would they do that? To take away from the actual conversation about gun control, because there have been over 320 school shootings in this country in 2024. Out of those 320 school shootings, a few of them have been transgender. And who cares? Who cares what the color of your skin is? Who cares whether you're transgender or not? Who cares what is between your legs? What we should be talking about is gun control. Why did this happen? How do we prevent more of these from not happening? But right-wingers on X, the trolls and the imbeciles spreading rumors like the Laura Loomers of the world that the shooter might be transgender, because it gives them an opportunity, just like Vivek Ramaswamy is obsessed with transgenders and transgenders that commit violent crimes. Well, less than 1% of mass shootings are conducted by transgenders. It is a completely irrelevant conversation. It is a joke. It is disgusting. It is despicable. And why are they doing it? It takes away from the actual real discussion on gun control and how we can work as the United States of America, work on both sides of the aisle to come up with reasonable solutions that can help prevent some of these horrible tragedies from happening. It's not going to end all the gun violence in this country, but there is one side of the aisle that is not willing to have the conversation, and there's another side of the aisle that is trying to put comprehensive background checks in place, which 80% of Americans agree with, and the other side that refuses to do so. Folks, it's as simple as that. There's plenty of problems we have in society that you can blame both sides of the aisle for. Maybe there are some problems in society you can just blame the left for. Okay, let's have those conversations. This is not one of them. There is one side of the aisle when it comes to gun control that want to do something about this. And then there is another side of the aisle that wants to compound the problem and make it worse, like Ron DeSantis, who has attempted to pass a bill that a felon could legally purchase a gun after 8 years of being out of jail. There are Republican governors in this country that want to make it easier for bad people to get their hands on guns. Greg Abbott is a perfect example of that. Ron DeSantis is a perfect example of that. And we need to call them out every day. And hopefully some of them will find their moral compass if they ever had it to begin with. But let's not hold hope, but we got to continue to call it out. And again, I feel for all those people that have been affected, gun violence in general, but particularly yesterday, what took place at that Christian school. It's horrible. It's terrible. Let's get some more information out there while right-wing propaganda continues to push fake narratives that this was a liberal, this was a Democrat. It's a 15-year-old girl that was obviously deranged and crazy. She's not transgender. Not that that should have any bearing over the conversation. And if anybody thinks it should, then you're a bigot and you're a moron. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to be joined by former retired Lieutenant Leonard Cardinale. He's going to be joining us next up to talk a little bit about this issue of gun control and much, much more. We'll take a quick break. We'll also take some phone calls next segment as well. We'll be back in 90 seconds. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and food. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at RadioYOU101.com.
It's time to wake up and win the weekend. You're listening to the boss of the big ball. JP the Cat, giving you that grease. Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time for the live action on Vegas Scoreboard Express on KSHP 107.1 FM and AM 1400. Dive into the game day with my in-depth analysis, expert predictions, and winning plays from the sharpest minds in sports betting. It's more than just placing bets. It's about securing wins. Head over to jptheticket.com and be sure to tune in to KSHP this weekend from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time to ride the winning wave with VSX. Tune in and get your money back from the sports book. All money, all sports, no bull. Missed the live show?
Craving
Subscribe
something
to Vegas
sweet?
Scoreboard
Head
Express,
to
Apple
777
Podcasts,
Cookies
Spotify.
and More.
Tune in.
From warm, gooey chocolate chip cookies to unique seasonal treats. Whether it's a classic cookie, coffee, or catering needs, we've got you covered. Come in for a taste of heaven today at 777 Cookies and More. Your sweet escape. Located at Sahara and Decatur in Sahara Pavilion North. 777 Cookies and More, 4750 West Sahara and Decatur. Sweetness awaits at 777cookies.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like you all to do me a favor and join my friends at Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones, the official gaming bar of the PTL radio show. Man, they got great promotions out there, including the Pass the Puck contest. If you're at the bar playing a machine during a Vegas Golden Knights game, you have a chance to win up to $500 in free slot play Mondays and Wednesdays. A free bottle of wine if you earn 300 points on any machine. They're awesome. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones, and tell them that I sent you. Also, I would ask, this is an independently owned radio show, so I get emails from people every day, and some of them say, hey, how do I get more involved? Well, if you want to support what I do, check out the website. We're very proud of it, pushingthelimits.live. We had 1 million people check out the website in just the last 3 weeks. So I'm very, very pleased with that. Pushingthelimits.live. I sell merchandise up there, shirts, hats, beanies, PTL gear. And if you want to make a donation, we appreciate that. There's a button right on the front page at pushingthelimits.live. We appreciate your support. And, we've been talking about gun violence, or at least I have. I've been talking about this horrible shooting that took place, 15-year-old troubled teenager taking the lives of 2 innocent people. It's awful, shooting multiple others. To talk to us about this issue, somebody who knows a thing or two about guns. He's been in law enforcement for decades, a former retired lieutenant and the president of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 443. And I've had a lot of listeners that said, hey, I really like that guy, Leonard. You should invite him back on. So here we are. Leonard Cardinale, nice enough to be joining us back in studio. Leonard, it's good to see you again. How are you?
Thanks for inviting me, Brian.
A lot of listeners enjoyed having you in, so I figured
That's good.
Let's do it again. I wish it was under better circumstances. What was your first reaction? Another school shooting yesterday. What was your first reaction when you heard about this?
Like everyone else, shaking my head, wondering what's next. What are we going to do next? And just so the listeners know, I own many guns. I have short barrel rifles that are that I'm authorized to carry through the ATF. So I'm a gun person, I would say. Carried the gun openly on duty for 25 years, off duty, had a CCW permit. I have a CCW permit now that's good in 31 or 32 other states. So I'm a gun kind of a person, but a couple of things. So I'm reading about Kamala Harris, right?
Mhm.
Vice President of the United States. And she doesn't really do the thoughts and prayers thing because I think everybody kind of shies away from that now. But she says, I hope the leaders will do the right thing. And I'm thinking, could you be more vague than that? So
what?
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
She's a vice president of the United
Mhm.
States. Could she or could she not write legislation right now, whether it's going to pass or not? Could
Yeah.
she not submit legislation and to see whether or not it passes to show
Right.
who really supports, who doesn't? Then Biden comes out and he says that we have to, we need legislation to ban assault weapons, and he talks about magazines and things like that.
Right.
But my question is, I guess, to you and everyone else
Yep.
is that too big a bite? Because I think the
Oh.
assault weapons are too big a bite. You're not going to get it.
Well, you might not. And Leonard, to answer your question, they've tried. They've tried to pass. And by the way, Biden was successful in passing the most comprehensive gun legislation in decades, but it wasn't anywhere near enough. Why? Because Republicans gave him that much. So I've listed some things, and I've been talking about these issues, and I want to get your thoughts on this since I've been on the radio, I feel like, at least the last 10 years. I believe we do need a assault weapons ban. It fizzled out in the early 90s. I believe we need to change the age from 18 to 21. And if people say, well, Brian, 18 years old, you can still serve in the military. Yes, but they're trained how to use the weapon. So let's have some mandatory training. And as I mentioned last segment, I'm not looking for 80 hours of training. I'm talking about just give me a 2-hour class. In that 2-hour class, doesn't matter what gun you buy, by the way, 2-hour class, teach you the basics. You're only going to learn so much in 2 hours. How to properly hold a weapon, how to properly shoot a weapon, how to properly store a weapon, and do it all safely. The very basic necessities. Why? If I'm in a supermarket and we don't have somebody like you in there, and there's a active shooter in a mall or a supermarket, I want to know that there's somebody there, that a good Samaritan that has a gun and knows how to use it. There's a lot of people in society that own guns and they don't really know how to use it. They don't store them properly. So that's the second thing I would do. In my personal opinion, we need stronger red flag laws in effect. Now, I know there are issues with that. So, for example, Leonard, if I don't like you and I say, boy, I hate that guy Leonard, he's my neighbor, and I'm going to call the police and lie and say that he threatened my life, so they'll take his guns away. No, I'm not saying we should go that far.
Let me, can I interrupt you on
Yeah.
this? On that,
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
red flag law, the big question is who gets to decide and who pays for it. That's the big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a neighbor that is outside running around crazy saying they're going to kill people, ultimately the police come out, but who decides whether that person has to go for a mental evaluation?
It's a good
And then,
question. Yeah.
Who pays for it?
It's a good question. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. If there's no real evidence that, say, a threat has been made, I'm not saying you want to take that person's guns away. However, if, example, a husband who's abusive or wife, whatever the case, leaves a voicemail to their partner saying, I'm going to go to your house and I'm going to kill you tonight. I'm going to go buy a gun. It's a voicemail. If you have that kind of evidence, you shouldn't have to wait a week or 4 days for a judge
But
to
the way
decide.
it is now, there's incidents which are 10,000 times worse than that, and they don't do anything.
I
either.
agree. We need
So
to change that.
If we back
Yeah.
up a little bit, let me ask you a couple of questions. Couldn't we go after ghost guns? Isn't
Sure.
that a lower bar than assault weapons?
Yes.
Couldn't we go after
Yes.
these 3D printers that
Yes.
can print gun parts?
Yes, we can.
Couldn't we go after legislation where it has to have a serial number, it has to be registered?
Well, I was going to give you some more examples, and that's something else that I think we need to do, and I agree with you. Here's what I would say. You might think this is too strong. If you're caught with an illegal gun or you're caught selling an illegal gun, I think it should be a mandatory prison sentence, no probation. Doesn't matter if you didn't even commit a crime with the gun. Now, I know some people are going to say Hunter Biden. I'm including him in this equation, okay? Anybody. If you are caught with an illegal gun, I think it should be a mandatory prison sentence. Now, how long is that sentence? Could be 3 months. I don't know. Could be 6 months. Could be a year. I don't know. But I believe if we had a mandatory minimum prison sentence, if you are caught with an illegal gun or you sell an illegal gun, I think that could save lives. Let's start there. Ghost guns. I agree with you.
Can I give you where the rubber meets the road
Sure.
kind of an example?
Sure.
So I was at Lake Mead in Ingolstadt in North Las Vegas where I worked, and we ended up arresting a young gang member with a gun who was cooperative. And so he wanted to speak, gave Miranda, and just asked him, where'd you get the gun? He said he made a phone call, and a couple of hours ago, he met somebody on that street, Lake Mead and D, and paid $300 for a Glock. So the question is, if they can buy guns that easily, meaning bad guys, but we have to go through these background checks. And I'm talking about more of a where the rubber meets the road problem. So I think that is it proper to charge the parents every time we have a school shooting? Should the parents know that they're going to get charged and do jail time? Because I can tell you they would think twice about how they're going to store those guns.
Sure.
And I don't know why, but I don't know the caliber of the gun that was used in the recent shooting, and I don't know where she got it from. So
I think they're
I
still
don't think it's out
investigating
yet.
that. But I agree with you. I think of the Sandy Hook shooting. I grew up in Connecticut, and the mother cost her own life, but she knew her son was mentally deranged, yet she taught her son how to use weapons, and clearly he had access to the guns in the house. So I agree with you on that. Let's take some phone calls on this. If you're just joining us, Leonard Cardinale joining us in studio, retired lieutenant, decades. We're talking, of course, about the school shooting that took place yesterday. One child died. A teacher has lost their life as well, and 6 others were shot. There are a couple people that are still in critical condition. The shooter, a 15-year-old girl who took her own life. And again, the right-wing propaganda on social media. Oh, it's a trans shooter, which not only is not true, but it's despicable, and it has no bearing on the conversation.
Well, I think she's getting therapy. Didn't it say she's receiving therapy?
Yeah,
It's irrelevant.
Yeah, to me, it's completely irrelevant, and it takes away
The last 10 weren't.
right.
you know?
I mean, it's irrelevant, and it takes away from the real discussions that we should be
I
having.
think we're up to 342 this year.
It's
so
over
far.
320, though. But you might be right. It's probably up there. It's unbelievable. All right, let's take some phone calls on this. The number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-7283. Let's go to Scott. Scott is first up. What's going on, Scott?
Hello, hi. This is Scott from Illinois. Am I on?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you for taking my call, Brian.
Sure.
Before I start, I do wonder if Herb or MAGA Patrick will call today. I love when you lay in on them because they make, yeah. Okay, so I typically vote Republican, but since Trump has come around, I haven't. He's disgusting. And with Republicans and their guns, it's as if you're pro Second Amendment. You're a tough guy. Yeah. That's why I couldn't vote for the guy who ran for Congress against Lauren Underwood in Illinois, even though I'm not a fan of Underwood.
Did you vote for Trump?
His big platform. I'm sorry?
Did you
didn't
vote for Trump?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, no, I did not vote for Trump.
Can I jump
would
in real
never.
quick? So what I hear from Republicans a lot, Leonard, and the gentleman we have on the line, Scott, they want to talk about, when we bring up gun control, when I say we, I mean people like me, bring up gun control, they want to talk about black on black crime in Chicago. And my response to them is always the same. I don't care whether it's gang violence. I don't care what the color of your skin is, whether it's a 15-year-old that goes into a school and wants to kill innocent people, or a gang member kills an innocent person on the street. Gun violence is gun violence. Why do you think they always want to bring up Chicago? Oh, well, it's a Democrat mayor and this and that. But yet they have no solutions, but they want to talk about that. I'm not making this up, Leonard, right? They want to talk about black on black crime all the time. I don't understand it,
Well, Trump.
Can I bring something up? Am I still on?
Well, let me just mention that Trump, one of his policies is going to be, they've said that the CCW permits will be good in all 50 states. So the states won't even be able to say whether or not they want to ban guns, concealed weapons. Because right now, California obviously doesn't have a very friendly law for guns. New York, New Jersey, very hard to get a concealed permit. But if they make a federal law, then you would be able to carry with any permit in any state. And I don't think that's fair. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Am I still on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you for keeping me on. I do want to add about Chicago because I live right outside Chicago. And I'm not trying to bash all Democrats here. The mayor and the past mayor have been they have not had the backs of cops. And I know a retired cop, he couldn't wait to get out of there because he knew when he was under the last mayor, Mayor Lightfoot, that the cops, they had no backing, and then their job, it's impossible to do.
You know what? It's frustrating. It's frustrating, though. And by the way, thank you for the call, because I see someone on social media making these kinds of statements that just drive me crazy, Leonard. Somebody on social media says, gun control laws don't reduce crime. Criminals don't obey laws. Okay, so what does that mean? We shouldn't have speed limits? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Should we not have speed limits? Should we not have any laws at all? Should you not have to get a driver's license? Should you not have to register a gun? Okay, well, let's just put our hands in the air and say, boy, I'd love this guy to call in.
Well, in Arizona, you don't even need a concealed weapon permit. Any adult who's 21 or older who can legally purchase a gun can carry it concealed, and there's no limit on the size of the knife you can conceal in Arizona.
That's crazy. You're a
so that means everybody.
You're a former cop. You can't tell me that makes the street safer, does it?
There's an argument, more guns, but here's the thing. We have 340 million people in this country, and we have 400 million guns.
It's insane.
Yeah, somewhere between for every 100 people, there's 130 to 140 guns.
Yeah.
So you have to address the problem where it stands, I think. Instead of saying, let's do this from now on, what do you do about the fact that there's already that many guns out there and everybody has them?
Well, I can tell you what's not working, what the right seems to be doing. More guns make us safer. Let's attack trans people and make up stories about a trans shooter. Oh, look at that manifesto. It was a liberal. It was a Democrat. They don't want to talk about the real core issues. They never want to talk about that. Let's harden our schools. Let's arm kindergarten teachers. Ted Cruz, that door in the back of Uvalde should have been locked, as if that would have stopped an 18-year-old deranged person who seconds earlier shot his grandmother in the face.
It's interesting that recently the 17-year-old girl, they said they didn't really find a manifesto. They looked online, and they're not done with their investigation, but it really didn't show much. She was probably just a troubled 17-year-old, and maybe not with an agenda, maybe not.
You're talking about are you talking about the shooting?
Yes, at the Christian school.
Yesterday,
in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and she's 15, we've learned. And
I thought okay.
I believe she's 15, and she was obsessed, social media, she was obsessed with the Columbine shooters. She was obsessed with school shootings. She was a very troubled individual. I'm not going to say that I'm going to put blame on the parents because I don't know enough information yet, and I think that would be irresponsible for me to say. However, I would be hard-pressed to figure out that the parents didn't know that their daughter was not, mentally well, but we'll learn more about that.
But really, no right and left, no liberal, no.
No, it's just
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not a political thing here. This is not this is a crazy lunatic, just like the Columbine shooters. This is a 15-year-old girl. You think she was political? And it's interesting because these right-wingers out there, it drives me nuts. the CEO shooter, right, Luigi, he was a big Elon Musk fan, right? He was not this raging liberal, but if you go on social media or on X, where it's a cesspool of right-wing morons, they'll claim that Luigi was this big lib. Why don't you take a look at his social media? He was pro Elon Musk, and a lot of things that he believed in were not your tip. Not that it should even matter. Okay, I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I care about solutions. I don't care if somebody's a Trump supporter or not. What I care about is innocent people dying.
I believe he mostly, Mangione, mostly created that gun from a 3D printer. Not all parts, but most parts.
Correct.
And there's ghost guns, and you can order parts online. And wouldn't that legislation be a little easier to regulate than just say no more AR-15s?
Yes.
The most favorite gun in America.
I agree with you 150%. And this idea from morons, again, on social media, the left is calling this guy Luigi a hero. I give the same response to them. You're always going to find crazies on social media. Find me one prominent Democrat that is an elected official that is called Luigi a hero. I can name you off the top of my head 20 Republicans that have called Kyle Rittenhouse a hero. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Tina. Tina is next up on PTL. Hey, Tina, what's going on?
Hey, Brian, and guests. I was calling in. It's really horrible about the shootings. I'm in Norfolk, Virginia, and we had just a couple weeks ago a 7-year-old shot his sibling who was 3 months old.
That's awful. Oh.
I think that the parents it starts with the parents. And before it starts with the parents, I believe that where they buy the guns and stuff at, I know they get them off the streets too, but the gun shops, I think they should do more of an investigation on these people. I think just like they do with people that are taken to jail, they do fingerprints, they do background checks on these people. I think that's what they should do with all the people that sign up for guns.
I agree. I think there's a lot of things that we could do that
but they're not doing.
Well, I think half the country, or at least half of those in office that are on the left, are willing to compromise. I just think Republicans, for the most part, are not willing to compromise on these issues. They care more about, again, what type of sick individual gives a 3-year-old an AR-15 to hold for a photo op in a Christmas photo? These people are sick people. You have to
We've
be
had local politicians do that as well. Christmas cards.
Yeah, they're sick. These are sick people, my dear.
Were the parents charged in that?
That I don't know. Here's what I do know. A lot of these Republicans, Leonard, they brag about their A+ rating from the NRA. They take pictures, family photos with AR-15s.
Yeah, but that's all politics and business.
I just think it's repulsive.
That has nothing to do about human safety. It has nothing to do with right and wrong.
What normal, mentally stable person, if they have very young children, talking about 3-year-olds, would give them a gun to hold on to? I mean, what type of people are we electing in office that think that is okay?
Could that be a part of the red flag law?
Yeah, I think it should. You cannot have, you know what? I'll even take it a step further. If you are under the age of 18, you are not allowed to handle a gun, period. There's no reason. If you're not allowed to own a gun, you shouldn't be allowed to handle one.
I think you can hunt at 14.
Okay.
In this state anyway.
Okay, so if you're hunting, and by the way, I disagree with that. I think you should be 18 to hunt as well. But, okay, let's go under 14. You should not be allowed to handle a real gun, period. What is the reasoning to allow that? Why is that okay?
Well, it seems like common sense.
Yeah. How many innocent people have died from accidental shootings with young children? It's crazy. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Jeff. Jeff is next up on PTL. Hey, Jeff. Thanks for calling in. What's up?
Hey, Brian. And yes, welcome back. So all the conversation about guns that we go to here never really goes anywhere. And I just have to say that ahead of the 2016 election, the NRA underwrote political access to their national convention for 2 Russian nationals, Maria Butina and Alexander Torshin, even though those 2 had declared their ties to the Kremlin. So this is another example of Putin knowing us better than we know ourselves and using Trump and disinformation to turn us against one another through race, guns, immigration, and abortion.
Well, speaking of disinformation, though, can you explain to me, and can anybody explain to me, why somebody would be a transgender or not, why that would be the first thing that somebody would think of after a school shooting. Can somebody explain to me why somebody would think like that, sir? Because I don't.
Brian, they can't.
It's crazy.
Well, it's politics. I mean, Trump brought that up Trump was running for president of the United States, and I heard him. This is a direct quote. He said that your children go to school a boy and they come home a girl.
It's insane.
But you know what? But it got traction.
Yeah.
It actually got traction. People were like,
believe it.
That's
Yep.
right. And you're not sending
Just
my
like
school.
eating cats and dogs.
Yeah. These people believe it. You can't have a normal conversation with these people. They're idiots. You can't.
Brian.
Yeah.
Brian, just one other thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marco Rubio, he's up now for his post. Now, from 2018 through a 2020 release of a bipartisan Senate report on Russian influence in the 2016 election, he publicly expressed deep concerns about Trump's vulnerability to be compromised. So, little Marco, what exactly is it that you've learned to ease those concerns? Or how many rubles did it take to get you to flip, traitor?
Well, listen, you're right. Listen, Donald Trump's own vice president, our vice president incoming, I can't believe I have to say this, is the guy who called Donald Trump possibly the next American Adolf Hitler. So none of these people have a backbone or a spine. All right, number to call if you do want to be a part of the conversation. We have one phone line open, which is rare, by the way, 702-221-7283. Let's go to Mark. Mark is next up on PTL. Hey, Mark, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian, and hello to the
Leonard.
The guest.
Hi, Brian. It's Leonard.
Leonard, who seems to be making a lot of sense. I'm a former military Army medic, and I'm not sure, Leonard, if you ever served in the military.
I did not.
And okay, and I'm not sure of how many people in the chat, but in the Army, the number one concern for the military was how to handle and safely, properly store your weapon, which was the M16A1, semi-automatic and automatic air-cooled weapon.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, in this country, if the NRA is against it, then the Republicans are against it. And it's not a question of, is there going to be another school shooting? It's a question of where and when.
I agree. Yeah.
That's how I'm looking at it.
I agree. Leonard, do you agree with that?
It's politics and money when it comes to the NRA.
Right.
It's
and what I was going to say was,
it's not about
if
the
the
children at all.
NRA, if the NRA stopped giving campaign contributions to everybody, you would see gun laws being passed, proper gun laws being passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I laugh at these people who are right to life. They're so worried about a baby being born, even without regard to the mother's safety or the child.
That's true.
They don't care, but after they're born, they couldn't give a crap.
Boy, you know, Mark, you bring up a really good point, Mark, and I appreciate your call. If, again, I'm going to give you another example. I said this first segment. I'll add to it what Mark was talking about. If Republicans took 10% of the energy that they take in talking about how they think abortion is an abomination, and they took 10% of that energy talking about gun control and working with Democrats, thousands of lives would be saved in this country. But Republicans care more about drag queens because the sky is falling with drag queen reading. They care more about transgender surgery. They care more about all these different issues about.
Why are they a no on metal detectors? Why? Children going to school will do anything you tell them to do. If you tell them to line up in the morning and walk through the metal detector, they have it at football stadiums. They have it at airports.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go anywhere and as an adult, and they don't let you carry any weapons in at all.
So, Leonard, I've heard this. I'm not opposed to metal detectors. Here's why I don't think it would work. If somebody, a crazed lunatic like this 15-year-old, sadly, is willing to take their own life and kill innocent people, they're not going to go through the metal detector. They're going to shoot through a window. They're going to shoot through a door. Now, I'm not opposed to it. I just think that money could be used maybe in better situations. Now, I'm all for metal detectors when you go to an event, you go to a concert, what have you, but schools are designed very differently. I'm not sure that would work. Now, maybe it would. I'm just not sure. That's
I
all.
don't. I see it as an equivalent. I don't see it as a false equivalent.
I'm not opposed
And
to it.
like you said, it have to be funded, and then you have
Yeah.
a school resource officer.
Sure.
Is that a law enforcement person or is that a security guard? Do they have the training? But I did want to ask the producer just real quick. I'm sorry to take a moment, but
That's all right.
Is this a manifest from?
Yeah, the manifest is, I believe it is. Yeah. But the reason why I don't read it and the reason why I don't really look at it yet is because the police haven't commented on it yet, and we're not sure 100%. And I don't like to really get into it until it's completely verified by law enforcement. So that's why I kind of stay away from the manifesto stuff. What we do know is that this was a very deranged 15-year-old girl. Verified, we've seen some of her posts, some of her pictures where she looked up to school shooters in the past. This was a mentally deranged person. She was mentally
Like you
ill.
said, this manifest is something that we haven't confirmed.
Right.
But if it is accurate,
yeah,
it would be hard for someone to convince me that the red flag doesn't apply to her.
Oh, I'm sure
I
it
don't
did.
know how much people have read.
Absolutely,
And I don't
it
want
did.
to. I don't want to do any direct quotes because we
What
haven't.
was the shooting a couple months ago where a guy? Maybe
It's bad, bro.
Guy went into a bowling alley and he shot a bunch of innocent people in a bowling alley, killed a bunch of people, and he was mentally ill. He was getting help, but yet he was still able to legally get his hands on a gun. I mean, don't even get me started. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you do want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Matt. Matt is next up on PTL. Hey, Matt, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Hi there.
Good. Hey, how much of the blame do we have to put on rural America?
How much of a what?
Blame. I think you said blame.
Oh, blame
For
on
guns.
Well, let me give you some statistics if you don't
Sure,
mind.
go ahead.
From the internet. So the highest gun violence rates in the United States are Mississippi, number 1, 29.7% per 100,000 residents. Louisiana, number 2. New Mexico, liberal state, number 3. Wyoming, Alabama, Alaska, Montana, Missouri, Arkansas, and Tennessee in that order, according to this research. And so I would say that if you're going to connect rural with violence, I don't think there's enough population to get an accurate reading of how much influence they would have over the cities. They're very spread out, and they probably all have guns.
Yeah. Matt, there you go.
Yeah, you're probably right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I agree that the concentration is mostly in the cities, urban areas with drug dealing and gang violence.
But okay, so I hear you, but I will also say the biggest mass shootings in the history of this country do not happen in those vicinities. We had the biggest mass shooting in the history of this country right in our backyard, and it wasn't in an urban area. It was from a middle-aged white dude who was mentally deranged, depressed. We still don't know his motive other than that he wanted to take his own life and kill a bunch of innocent people. And again, this is where I get so angry with conspiracy theorist morons. We have one that is going to be the head of health, and his name is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., right?
He's ridiculous.
Yeah. But we still hear conspiracy theories about October 1 shooting. There is a local radio host here who is an imbecile who I think he's working on his fourth ex-wife now, if memory serves me right. But this imbecile said the days after the shooting that it was Muslims that were responsible for it.
In Las Vegas?
Yes. And
I don't know if you know this, Brian, but I was working that night.
I think I did talk to you about that.
I was working.
So we have this imbecile who said that Muslims are responsible for the October 1 shooting. And then when it was obviously not true, who did he blame? He blamed people like you. He said, I have a couple law enforcement friends that gave me bad information. He never named anybody. I don't believe a word this idiot says. But this is the same guy who Donald Trump invites on a stage to introduce him when he comes to Las Vegas. These are the people that cling on.
That's a shock value.
It's
only.
awful. It's awful. He's a terrible human being.
There was no credibility to that. Nothing like that ever.
No, of course not.
Came across our radar.
Of course not. And it was a mentally deranged individual. And yes, I wish the police officer who was up there didn't freeze up for 8 minutes. I think a lot of police officers that day were very heroic. I think a lot of people, good Samaritans, police officers, a lot of people did their job and did it very well that day. There was one police officer that froze up for 8 minutes, and then Joe Lombardo, who is now the governor, who was your boss at one point, right? Joe Lombardo decided to give this guy a job again. So don't even get me started there. That's another topic.
He was shooting from, I believe, the 32nd floor.
Right.
And so it was very difficult to track exactly which floor it was from the ground. So that took a little bit of time. And
But the guy that froze up was 8 minutes stood there outside the room.
I don't know the details on that, so I don't.
I felt like it was very Uvalde-ish. One police officer, and the report came out, he didn't do anything for 8 minutes. I understand you're in fear for your life, but I also believe that when you're a police officer, and I haven't had any of the training that you've had.
Well, Uvalde was ridiculous because
Yeah, that was
our
absurd.
training is,
Yeah.
if there's an active shooter, you just go. Now, it used to be you need a group of 3 or 4, then it was
Every
you could do
second
2, but
counts.
now they
Yeah.
changed the training where even if you're by yourself, if
You
you
just
think you
go.
need to go, there's no standing in the hallway, there's no planning,
And that's what that one officer
It's not a
did.
barricade.
Exactly.
It
You would
doesn't
never
qualify for a barricade.
You would never have behaved in the way that those Uvalde officers behaved, and because of that, I believe innocent children's lives could have been saved. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Tori. Tori is next up on PTL. Hey, Tori, what's going on?
Hi there. I wanted to bring something up which I have found to be extremely troubling for quite a while. Let me preface this by saying I live in Texas currently, and it's about private sales of guns. There are no requirements here. In Texas, like down to, you don't even need to ask the person their name.
Yeah, thank Governor Abbott
before
for
you
that
sell
one.
them your gun.
They love their guns in Texas.
Exactly.
Governor Abhole, as I like to
you
call him.
can't do that in Nevada.
No, Texas is a joke.
Exactly.
What a joke that
If
state
you
is.
look it up, though, nearly half the states don't require private sellers to get any information or anything else about who they're selling a gun to. No background checks, don't need a licensed dealer to help with the transaction, nothing.
That is, think about that for a minute. She's absolutely right. 80%, more than 80% of the country believe in comprehensive background checks. Yet think about what's going on in certain states in this country like Texas. It's insanity. How can it be okay for anybody in this country to sell a gun to another individual without knowing anything about them? You could be giving a gun to a felon.
Well, the laws in Nevada used to be pretty loose 20 or more years ago,
right?
Where you just had to be, quote unquote, reasonably sure you weren't selling it to. But now you have to go to a gun store in Nevada, and I don't know if you know this, and you have to have a background check while you're transferring the gun, and you have to pay for it. So you cannot do that in Nevada. But Texas is...
This should not be a state-by-state issue. By the way, I feel the same way about abortion. Geography should have no bearing over a woman's body. These Republicans are such morons. And I feel the
Very
same.
true.
I feel the same way about gun control. We live in the United States of America. It's interesting because these Republicans always talk about the Constitution, and they want to talk about, make America first and all this other nonsense slogans. But yet, when it comes to very serious issues like gun control or abortion, they want to leave it up to the states. And the reason why they want to do that is because they know the majority of Americans do not believe in banning abortion.
Well, they're doing something by doing nothing.
Right.
Because if you leave it up to the states, then half of the people in those states don't agree with what the state's doing. And so they punted. It was a good strategy. They punted it. Trump and them punted it and said, give it to the states. And so I think it's going to stay that way for a while.
Yeah, unfortunate. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Jack. Jack is next up on PTL. Hey, Jack, what's going on, man?
Hey, Bri. I just had a quick comment and then a question. My comment, when you talk about why did they always go to a trans excuse or whatever, it's an immediate attempt to change the topic. They just want to change the topic from gun safety to blame it on, the person, on mental health. They want to change it to it's a trans person and they have mental problems and this is the real problem, except when it comes up in Congress to vote on to get more help for mental health, and they all voted against it. It's like the most ridiculous thing. Like they don't want to fix this problem. And then my question is to Leonard. Leonard, I struggle with this. Like all the guns in most, all right, I'm going to say 99 out of 100 of these mass shootings, they're all high capacity guns that, have a propensity to kill as many people as you can the quickest possible. That's what these guns are for. Now, I heard you say, you kept your guns, you were a law enforcement person. I believe you guys should have to turn those things back in. Like, I don't know what do you use that for? If I could ask you a question, do you hunt with that? Do you?
I don't hunt. I don't hunt, and it's recreational purposes. I was actually a firearms instructor for many years. When I was a new police officer, I was an AR-15 instructor. I was an armorer. I was a tactical shotgun, tactical rifle instructor. So I'm kind of a gun person recreationally. And so, no, I don't hunt. And I do enjoy, having my guns. And I would say that there needs to be some regulation on it. But I think it's more interesting, digressing to your first comment, what does it say to you, or what does it say to other people that more than half of the country, when they bring up an issue to deflect, like LGBTQ, or they were receiving therapy, that more than half of the country responds to that in a positive manner? Go, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Stupidity.
Yeah.
Stupidity.
And what does it say that? But that's more than half the country.
Well, here's what I would. You're right, Leonard. Here's what I would say to that. Most polls that I've seen, almost 7 out of 10 Republicans believe that Donald Trump won the 2020 election, which means that 70% of Republicans are idiots. Okay. You look at some of these polls, you're absolutely right. You hear about a trans shooter, and they think that's more important than talking about the real reasons why this person did what they did, or talking about the issues that we've been talking about for an hour. So you're absolutely right. Listen, when 7 out of 10 Republicans think that Donald Trump won the 2020 election, that means one of two things. Either they're extremely stupid, which is probably most of them, or they're intentionally lying because they kissed the ring of Donald Trump. Either way, it's dangerous for the country.
Well, it's brainwashing. It's cultish.
Absolutely. It is a cult.
Because a cult leader can say anything.
Right.
And in the Mayan civilization, not to belabor the issue, but they would follow their leader into a fire, into a pit of fire.
Yeah.
They would just follow him.
You're right.
Because they were brainwashed.
That's why it's a cult. I've been calling it a Klan cult, and the reason why I say that is because the Klan is a cult. And yes, I do believe a lot of the Donald Trump rallies that I've gone to, there's a lot of people there that are bigoted and racist in nature. I've seen it with my own eyes, so nobody can tell me otherwise. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Al. Al is next up on PTL. Hello, Al.
Hey, Brian, thank you for taking my call, and I'm listening to your show, and I want to call you out on two things. Number one, Republicans have been suggesting metal detectors. We're going to be having them here in Clark County School District. Yeah, they're not 100% correct, but there is no law that you can create that's going to be 100%.
I never said. When have I ever said that there is a law that would fix all the problems?
No, well, the problem is the guy just told you about metal detectors. And he said,
okay, so let me ask you a question.
Because they're going to go through the window.
Sure. So let me.
So you want something 100%?
No, I don't want. No, I don't want. No, I don't want something 100% because I would never make a stupid statement like that. How? Okay, so
well, that's what you just
riddle
said.
me
What
this.
did you mean by that?
Riddle me.
What did you mean by that not being able to go to the window?
Okay, I will.
What did you mean by that?
Are you going to let me
That means you
answer?
want
Are you going to let me
100%?
answer, or are you going to keep screaming? No, don't hang up on him. Okay, Al. Here's what I mean by that. So somebody like you, I'll speak very slowly and distinctly, so somebody like you maybe can understand. Maybe. I'm holding hope, Al. Let's go with the Uvalde shooting. By the way, I just said on the show with Leonard that I'm not against it, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I didn't say I was against it. What I did say, and I stand by my statement. Now, this is where you have to take the MAGA wax out of your ears and listen. What I did say was Uvalde shooting, for example, or even the shooting yesterday. If you do have metal detectors and someone's willing to risk their own life, kill themselves to kill innocent people, they're probably not going to go through that metal detector, or they'll shoot through a window or door. We both can be right.
Yeah, well,
Hold on. I'm not against metal detectors. Now let me ask you a question. Would metal detectors have stopped the October 1 shooting in Las Vegas?
No, but we're talking about schools right now.
Okay.
We're talking about
what did I
schools.
say that
And
doesn't
yeah,
make sense?
It would have.
The bellhop
A metal
helped him
detector
carry
would
his
have
guns
helped
up.
if they would have them at the casino.
Al, hang on a second. We're not talking about casinos. Let's go to the Uvalde, Texas shooting, shall we? An 18-year-old just shot his grandmother in the face. Do you mean to tell? And by the way, he didn't go through a front entrance either. He went through a back door. If that back door was locked, he would have shot it down, I guarantee you. Can you please explain to me?
Can I ask a question on that? Because in my home, it shows when every door is locked and when every door is open. So the school didn't have, they don't even have a security measure that shows you the door is open. I mean,
I agree.
What is that? A couple of $100?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Al, can you please explain to me what I said that is not logical? Where do you disagree with me, Al?
All I'm trying to tell you, okay, this is the impression that I got on this side of the equation, okay, is that you're against. Maybe you've clarified it, and that's
No,
why
I
I called
didn't.
in.
Wait, hold on a second. What do you mean now I've clarified it? 5 minutes ago, I just said, quote, I'm not against metal detectors. Why do you just assume
No. You said that.
I don't know if it would. I don't know if it would help a great deal, but I'm not against it. Now let me ask you a question. Other than Republicans,
let me say something that I wanted to say.
You're giving
Republicans.
Republicans. You're giving Republicans credit. Oh, they want to pass metal detectors. Can you name me anything Republicans have done in 20 years to lower gun violence in this country? Because I could name you a laundry list of things that Democrats have done. What the hell? What the hell? You're a Republican.
That wasn't the point of my call.
That's the point of my question. I know that's not the
you're
point of
saying
your
that
call.
We're not supplying solutions.
You're trying to defend Republicans, and I'm asking you a question, doofus. Answer the question. What have Republicans done nationally in this country in the last 20 years to lower gun violence?
Who do you think the metal detector laws over here? Here in Clark County.
Let's just assume.
Okay.
All right.
So the point is this. Okay.
Yeah. What is your point? What is your point?
The point is this.
Yeah, please.
The point is this. We're talking about metal detectors in school to slow things down. That was my point. I don't think it's going to solve it 100%.
Correct.
The point that I was going to try to make, I think it's going to slow it down.
Okay. So
that's
Al,
all I can think.
Al, one other question.
That's all I'm trying to tell you.
Al.
And Republicans have been talking about it. Go ahead.
Al, help me out here, and then I want Leonard to take over. But Al, help me out here, okay?
Go ahead.
Other than your claim that Republicans have voted for metal detectors in schools, can you give me something on a national platform? For instance, something that Donald Trump did, that the man that you voted for, something that Republicans have done on a national level that you think will lower the gun violence in this country? Because on the contrary, they're making it easier for Republicans to get for people to get their hands on guns. Ron DeSantis passing a law that felons in 8 years could legally purchase firearms. They're making it easier for people to get guns. What the hell have Republicans done on a national scale to lower gun violence?
Let me tell you, first of all, you're a moron. Okay.
Okay. Why?
I'm going to tell you what it is.
Why am I a
Get the
moron?
liberal earwax out of your ears.
What did I
My
say?
point of my phone call
Why am I a
was
moron?
metal detectors in school.
So you don't want to answer
Why
the
do you
question.
go off
He doesn't want
off
to.
the rails.
Okay, hold on. Okay, first of all, I'm not going off the rails. We're talking about gun control, and if you want to go ad hominem attacks on me, I don't mind that at all. But you got to back it up. You see, Al, we're not just, this whole show isn't just about metal detectors and the two Republicans you claim that might have helped pass metal detector laws in Las Vegas or Clark County. We're talking about gun control and gun violence in the country. So I'm going to ask it one more time, and let's see if Doofus can answer it. What have Republicans done in the last couple decades? I'm giving you a 20-year window. Nationally, what bills have they put on the books that they pushed for that actually lowered gun violence in this country, or even you believe helped lower gun violence, besides some metal detector thing in Clark County? What have they done nationally? What has Donald Trump done, the orange doofus that you voted for? What has he done, and what have national Republicans...
And they do not support red flag laws.
Exactly. What have they done, Al? I'm not going off the rails. Answer the question.
Sir, again, the answer, the reason I called was about metal detectors.
You're a coward. You're a coward. You're a coward.
What's he going to say? There's nothing
You're going to talk to somebody.
You're a
I
coward.
haven't done my research on. You're off.
You haven't done your. I'm off the rails.
No, I've done my research, and you don't have.
On the crazy train, you're part of it.
Right. Okay, go ahead, Leonard. Yeah, I'm the crazy train.
I only brought up the metal detectors as a starting point. I was not speaking in terms of solving the problem. And then Brian gave us some alternatives. What about if they take a different path? What about if they, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But you have to start somewhere. And, and I can't understand for the life of me why anybody would be against, other than the money.
No, Al, I'll do the research for you. Nothing. Republicans nationally have done nothing, because unlike you, I know what I'm talking
and
about.
They will not pass a red flag
and you
law.
want to bring up this anecdotal, right, they won't pass red flag laws or anything. But yet you seem to continue to defend Orange Turd, the liable sexual abusing 34 count felon. He did nothing. Let me tell you what happened after October 1. And this should be personal to Leonard, and I'm sure it is. Donald Trump flew out here to Vegas for his photo op. He spent an hour in a hospital taking pictures with people, and then he left town. Okay. And then he met with the leader of the NRA at the time, the guy who I think stole money from the organization. Okay. He was going to pass this bump stocks thing, which I don't think anybody could make their own bump stock if you know anything about guns. And he wanted to be a champion for that. And then he was against it because he met with the leader of the NRA. Donald Trump, just like you, you're a coward and you won't answer the question. So I'm going to answer it for you. Hey, Al, Republicans have done nothing nationally to address this issue. They say more guns make us safer. You're probably one of those idiots that believes that, okay? They think more guns make us safer. They think kindergarten teachers should be armed with weapons.
They do think.
Why don't you just answer the question honestly and say, you know what, they haven't done anything? Just like you. They haven't done anything. Why don't you just answer the question?
Okay, can I answer now? Can I talk? Or am I off hold here over here?
Yeah, it's my show and not yours, doofus.
Okay, sir. It's your show. Okay, that's the problem with
you want to talk about metal detectors again?
People on, and you don't let them talk.
I've kept you on for 10 minutes now, doofus.
Maybe
wait, calm down. You're right.
You've been on the longest out of anybody.
I don't have an answer. I'm now asking you the same question for the 10th time. I answer any question that anybody asks me on this show. No, I'm asking you the same question, and I'm going to give you one more opportunity since you just claimed I don't ask the question. I'm now going to ask you for the 10th time, and this will be the last time, okay? What have Republicans done on a national level, including Donald Trump and any Republican president or any national figure that is an elected official that's a Republican? What have they put on the books in the last 20 years that you believe have saved lives when it comes to gun control? And don't say metal detectors. Go.
Go.
I hear crickets.
Well, we gave him his time.
I hear Al just hung up the phone. Aw, it's interesting. I asked him the same question 10 times, Leonard, and he wouldn't answer the question because he couldn't, because he knows the answer is no, they haven't done anything. That is your typical MAGA clown.
My only point on the metal detectors was maybe we shouldn't take such a big bite. Because if you want to pass, I mean, look at this state. Last year, we almost had a supermajority in the assembly. We missed by one. This year, supermajority in the assembly. Missed in the Senate, supermajority by one. So we have a lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats have a lot of control. But how come nothing ever passes or gets addressed?
I'm so glad that Al called in, because that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. There are not a lot of people that are intellectually honest on the far right when it comes to this issue. The answer is nothing. Okay. Now, if Al just said, I don't know of anything, I would have respected that answer because he wouldn't be lying. Instead, he dodged it, he avoided it, and he wanted to talk about metal detectors in Clark County.
Well, people call in with talking points, but the problem with a talking point is you don't really have the knowledge that surrounds the if you listen to one of the news stations and they're providing talking points, you don't have the knowledge that surrounds it.
Al, go ahead and call into one of your right-wing echo chamber radio shows with 4 listeners, and I'm sure they'll give you the time of day, but I won't. 702-221-7283. Let's go to David. David is next up on PTL. David, what's going on?
Man, I was listening to that. That's pretty rough.
For him, not me. For him, not me.
Yeah, so I'm trying to have civil dialogue. So I would be considered a conservative, right?
That's totally fine.
And I do agree at the federal level, yes. It's not the Republican position to move towards gun laws because we're very much so Second Amendment enthusiasts, right? So I do agree with it. But I'm also living in Philadelphia, and my background, just for the LEO that's sitting there, is yes, I'm also a former cop as well as a veteran of both the United States Army and the United States Marine Corps. And so my issue is these are very complicated issues, and I usually side with the rights of the people, right? And so when I've heard you guys talk about the red flag laws, I'm very skeptical just because of Fourth Amendment violations, right? I think that I don't like the due process part of the red flag laws.
Okay, so listen, David, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's just agree to disagree on red flag laws. I want to hear from you, a former cop and someone who served.
Yeah.
What are some of your solutions that you think Democrats and Republicans should get together and do?
I think that, what I'm seeing here locally, and I want to get the LEO, the lieutenant's position on this, is a lot of the local laws is what's hindering us, right? So let's say in Philadelphia, they got rid of Terry searches, which was one of the strong tools that we used to use to be able to not really pat down, but be able to frisk for weapons. So it's a hindrance for us to be able to, I think it was about a year ago, we had a mass shooter in Philadelphia, but the Philadelphia cops weren't allowed to do the basics that would be able to even consensually stop this guy
Well,
with
let
an
me
AR-15.
let me say a couple of things. Philadelphia is a one in a 100,000 example. They're very left, very liberal, so they stopped the stop and frisk and the Terry engagement. But being a police officer, and I'm not saying this with hubris at all, I'm saying in a very humble way, only because I was a street cop most of my career and a supervisor for more than half of my career, and so if you're trained properly, you should be able to interact with someone and get the information that you want to get without saying, hey, stop, reasonable suspicion, I'm patting you down. I mean, if you know how to talk to people and you know the laws, and if they're not breaking a law and you don't have a reason to stop them, that's why they got in trouble, because they were stopping everybody and saying everybody looks suspicious, and you can't do that. But I think a reasonable cop, I know the police officers that were under me as a sergeant and lieutenant, I never had any issues with any of that ever, because they were very well trained and they knew what they could and could not do. And they were taught, if you can't get it, if you think they're guilty, if you think
so
they're doing something
I don't
wrong,
want to talk
if you
over
think,
you, but I want to interject real quick.
well, let
Because
me just say, they were taught to
go
walk
ahead.
away. If you can't get what you want from the person, don't violate their rights, walk away. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so going back to that, Philadelphia is one of those areas where I said the Democrats, we have very strong gun laws in Philadelphia. It's even stronger than a lot of the other cities within, because I think you guys understand how Pennsylvania works.
Yes.
Philadelphia is very, very strong when it comes to gun laws. But the problem is, as I said, Democrats hurt themselves at the local level. So there's a lot of conversation to be had about, are you hindering yourself from being able to get after something?
David, here's where we disagree. Here's where we disagree, David. And I guess I'll put it like this. Let me ask you this. Are you comfortable with a kid when they turn 18 years old, no matter what state you live in, the day you turn 18, walking into a gun store, never carried a weapon before, buying thousands of rounds of ammunition and several assault weapons? Are you okay with that? It's a very basic question. Forget about Democrats and Republicans or where it is. Are you okay with that?
Yes, actually I am.
Okay, well, that's a fundamental disagreement that we have, because I don't think we should have assault weapons out there in society, and I don't think that 18 years old, never trained how to use a weapon. I'm not comfortable with that, and I think we are a country that is obsessed with our guns.
You have to have reasonable laws.
Yeah,
you can't just say open card and good luck.
So I wanted to ask you a question then, based upon that question, right?
Sure.
So can you define an assault weapon to me?
Yep, I get this.
That's been the biggest thing that I've tried to understand from the left.
Okay, well, I'm not from the left. I'm a registered independent who doesn't want innocent people to die. I didn't vote for Barack Obama. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm for capital punishment. I'm for border security. And I don't know why people automatically assume, because I don't want innocent people to die, and I think our gun laws need to be stricter, for lack of a better term, that I'm on the left. I don't know why people do that. So you're wrong about that. That's number one. Number two, okay? I get into the weeds with people all the time when it comes to assault weapons, and I will be the first one to admit to you, I'm not an expert when it comes to guns. You probably know a lot more about guns, and certainly Leonard does, than I do. But here's what I will tell you. The types of guns that were used in Las Vegas that killed 61 people, the types of guns that were used in the Columbine shooting, the biggest mass shootings in American history were used with assault weapons. The types of guns that were built not to defend yourself, but to kill as many people as possible in a short period of time. Now, I'm more interested, sir, in having a conversation with you about solutions, and I haven't really heard any from you. I've only heard you criticize red flag laws. I've heard you wanting to get into the weeds with me, with all due respect.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah, just one second. I've heard you get into the weeds with me about what is an assault weapon, but I haven't really heard you. All I've heard you do is criticize Democrats. I want to know real solutions.
So I guess the reason why I'm probing the answers is to try to find a common ground, because a lot of my mindset is based upon the people's rights. When people throw out an assault weapon, right, I want it defined, because, and I think that's been the biggest problem in our communication gap, is, can you define it?
Well,
let me interrupt you.
Do we have the right to own a grenade? Do citizens have the right to own?
Go back to an AR-15, but I really wanted
assault
to quickly
weapons
cite
are weapons that were primarily designed for military. Okay, and they generally are high capacity. They generally have they're usually louder, and they do more damage by the nature of
the
their
definition
caliber.
is usually belt fed, gas operated, got that whole thing. The problem is when people use that to take AR-15s, which is covered, by the way, underneath the Heller decision, underneath common use. And that's why I'm saying it's a right that's protected of the people for the AR-15.
Okay, so let me ask you another question then. If you want to speak about rights, does that mean that people should have the right to own a tanker, a bomb, a grenade? Where do we draw the line? Where do you draw the line? What should people not be allowed to have?
The lines are already drawn. There's already rules on that.
Okay,
And
so nothing could be changed with the Constitution, even though when they wrote the Constitution, we had something called muskets, but you're not willing to change anything? Does that mean we should be allowed to own human beings?
The veteran side of me is very cautious about the government itself disarming the populace, especially when I went through Iraq.
How are they disarming? But sir, I respect your service, but how are they disarming the populace? I'm not saying we all shouldn't be allowed to have guns.
AR-15s, right? If you move to take AR-15s, the whole premises of the Second Amendment is for the individual American.
A well-regulated militia.
We're not even close. We're not even close to AR-15.
No. Real quick, you need to cite Heller v. D.C. 2008.
So what are your... this is my problem, David.
I know, but just because
the
a case
Supreme
law...
Court ruled it is the individual right to keep and bear arms outside of a well-regulated militia.
Okay, but that's
outside of it.
But that's a blanket statement. It's non-specific. We're talking about
it's
AR-15s, and I'm telling you that is one of the most favorite guns of all Americans, and no legislation, I don't think at this point in our history, is going to pass to ban AR-15s.
I agree.
That's why I advocate for let's take a smaller bite. Let's
agree.
do easier things. Let's do things that have more regulations and make common sense.
Leonard, David, I'm speaking to you now, okay? And by the way, thank you for your service to this country. I respect you, and you're a hero for that, even though we really disagree on this issue. But David, respectfully, this is my biggest issue with this conversation. I haven't heard any solutions from you. All I've heard from is you talk about the Second Amendment, you talk about the Constitution, you like to blame Democrats for what's going on in Philadelphia.
Banning ARs is not a solution.
I understand. But David, I'm coming up with solutions that you might not agree with. Okay, fine. I haven't heard one solution out of your mouth.
It's trying to find common ground. I think that we both have these.
So give me something. Give me a solution.
Mental health.
Okay, but what does that mean?
But
what does that mean? Republicans don't want to put money into helping people that are mentally deranged. And if you don't believe me, you could go to Washington, D.C. and look at all the bills they vote against when Democrats are trying to help people that are mentally ill. So Republicans, you could blame for that one. Now, I agree with you. We don't want bad people, mentally ill people getting their hands on a gun. All three of us agree on that. But that's not a bill, and that's not a solution. Give me an actual solution. What would you do, David, if you were a lawmaker? Because all I hear from you is, this is not an assault weapon. Let's get into the weeds on what an assault weapon is.
I think that the only solution I truly have, and I'm going to be honest, is as the Constitution states, is my position to uphold the Second Amendment. Now, when it comes to, and the reason being, as I said, is I care about the individual American and their right to be able to protect themselves against the possible tyranny of a government.
So you don't have any solutions then?
When you're talking in terms of solutions, we are a long way from changing the Second Amendment. So that's
David, you sound like you're a nice guy, okay? You really do. And we can disagree. That's good. I like disagreeing.
The whole point.
Okay, but David,
okay,
I agree. Okay, fine. But you haven't given me any solutions. And I get frustrated.
I think the solutions, as I said, is enable the police officers, right? Enable at the state function. We're talking about federally. You're really not going to change the Republicans' position at the federal. But at the state, enable the law enforcement agencies to do the background check stuff correctly, which, people like Hunter Biden.
They do background checks. Police do background checks. Leonard, you can help me on that one.
The whole background check stuff, that's just normal. We already do it. But actually enabling us to get after things like gun charges.
I don't know any state that doesn't have a background check.
So we cannot get after things in Philadelphia. Like, I wanted to say real quick, and then I'll go, which is for the lieutenant, we are so handicapped at that city level underneath to where we can't even stop people for minor traffic infractions. How do you get to that probable cause aspect if you got somebody that's got these illegal guns in there? If you can't even pull them over for things like that, for reasonable suspicion, you can't even pull people over.
Let me interrupt. I understand.
Hang on, David. Hang on, David.
I understand. You're saying all politics is local, and I understand that. But we're talking on a bigger scale, because when you start to go state to state, like I said, Arizona, you could be 21 years old, just walk in, buy a gun, and if your son or daughter is over 18, you can just give it to them, and it's their gun.
Yeah. So, Leonard, I'm glad that David called. David, I'm glad you called in. But this is a perfect example of what I am talking about when I get into gun control debates. David wanted to debate me on what's an assault weapon. He wanted to blame Democrats for what's going on in Philadelphia. He talks about the Second Amendment and the Constitution. Okay, we could agree to disagree.
Talking about city
However,
legislation.
right. However, this is what I want people to take away from this conversation. David had zero solutions. You can disagree with Leonard's solutions. You can disagree with Brian's solutions. Why am I talking to the third? I don't know, first person. But at least we're coming up with some solutions. David, next time you call into this show, give me some solutions. Police officers are already doing background checks in every state in this country.
That's the second caller in a row that really didn't.
Yeah. You have no solutions. Everybody that wants to debate me or you on this issue literally has no real solutions. And that is why the Republican Party is at fault, in my opinion, a big reason why we can't pass comprehensive background checks in this country.
Can I just say real quick?
Yeah.
His two main points were assault weapons shouldn't be banned and Second Amendment.
Yeah.
So we're not even in the ballpark talking about those types of changes.
No. And by the way, people on Brian, you haven't given any solutions. I've named you 5 or 6.
We could say them again.
Yeah, okay, I'll say it one more time so again the people could get the MAGA wax out of their ears and listen. Okay. I personally believe there should be some sort of mandatory training, maybe a 2-hour class, teach you how to hold the weapon, teach you how to shoot a weapon, how to store the weapon. That's it, just 2 hours. I understand driving a car is a privilege, but in my opinion, you have to take a test when you get your driver's license. You have an instructor. Same thing with a gun. Give me a 2-hour mandatory
Nevada
training
used
class.
to have that. You used to have to take a class for a gun safety permit.
Right.
And we did it away with it in 2015. And you know who controlled the legislature in Nevada in 2015? It wasn't the Democrats.
Yeah, what a shocker.
And they got rid of the gun registration
Shocker.
completely.
Yeah. So that's number 1. Number 2, raise the age to 18 to 21. Number 3, we need to have an assault weapons ban like we had in the early 90s when gun violence was way down and then Republicans allowed it to fizzle out. Yes, I do believe red flag laws need to be more consistent and put on the books as well. Yes, I do believe that our laws should be stronger. If you sell an illegal gun or you're caught with an illegal gun, I do believe there should be a mandatory prison sentence. And ghost guns. That's all in there.
3D printing.
Absolutely. I agree with you 150% on that. Now, we just named 6 things, right? Give me 2 of those. And don't tell me we're not coming up with solutions because I haven't heard one from some of you maggots out there. We just gave you 6. Give me 2 of those things.
Do we need a barrel magazines that hold 250 rounds? Do we need? I can go right now to a gun store locally and buy one that has 100 with 2 drums, one on each side, and they're legal. There's no law against them.
I agree.
That's a smaller bite, right?
But it's
250 round magazines is a smaller
And when you
bite.
say smaller bite, it's something that can get the conversation started. I agree. Let's go to Paul. Paul is next up on PTL. Hey, Paul, what's going on?
Hey, man, real quick on that last caller, or the one before that about the metal detectors.
Yeah.
If that young lady at 15 didn't even have access to the gun, we wouldn't need metal detectors. That's the thing, is they want to be reactive. I want to be proactive. Let's make safe storage laws so that the parents are accountable. Like, that would take a lot of this out. These kids are minors, right? I mean,
if the parents knew they were going to get charged, believe me, it'd be a different story. If they knew ahead of time that there were laws and they were going to get charged something for their daughter or their son going down and shooting up a school, and they knew they were going to get arrested, I think that would have some impact.
Agree. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. I was thinking today, this is more the overall picture. When I posted on Facebook yesterday about the shooting because, I have young kids that go to school, and I am horrified and sickened that my kids have to do active shooter drills. You know what they were posting about today? Gingerbreads, the price of gas. Oh, I'm going to this person's house. Like, we the people are partly responsible, all of us, because we normalize this. I mean, we literally had a second grader call the police about a 15-year-old girl shooting her classmates, and the next day we're talking about our cat pictures and making gingerbread cookies the very next day, Brian.
A lot of people are apprehensive. Look at Brian Shapiro doing a show, and half the callers are attacking him, so people don't want to get attacked.
It's okay. I'll attack them back. It's all right.
So they want to talk about gingerbread. You know what But not everybody's like that. That's
right.
the point.
You're right. Yeah.
Right, but that goes to, I think a lot of this is it's selfishness, is because it doesn't affect them, they don't give a crap.
I agree.
The gun comes to their school, they don't care. And people like you and me and your guests there, we care about other people, not just because it affects us. Like, I care about my black brothers and sisters. I care about women's rights, and I'm a dude.
Right.
And I think that's really the root of where we get someone like a Donald Trump is we have a lot of selfish people that only care about the price of eggs.
Agree.
And nothing else. And that's a real damn shame.
I agree, Paul. They care about the price of eggs, but they'll buy that $60 Trump Bible.
You
though.
can bet nothing is going to change for the next 2 years. I don't say 4 years because we're going to have midterms in 2 years. And if things go the way I think they are, we may be switching out who controls the House of Representatives and who controls the Senate.
Very possible. 702-221-7283. Scott is next. Hey, Scott, what's going on?
Hey, Brian, how you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
Hey, I just wanted to maybe springboard off a couple of points. One you probably made earlier about certification and stuff like that, you know, requiring some type of training. And I remember at a last job I had, just to order or just to pour a glass of beer, I had to take a 5-hour course to get certified for that.
TAM card. Yep.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
So I don't understand why.
It's a good point.
Getting some basic training.
Well, you know what the MAGAs would say? They would say, it's a privilege to pour a beer. It's a privilege, but it's our right. It's our Second Amendment right. It's a privilege. That's
But
what
part
they
of
would
that
say.
training is safety because don't
Right.
you have to kind of gauge how drunk a person is and whether or not you should cut them off? Isn't that part of the training?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's based
exactly.
on safety.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
The same thing as if you have to serve food to the public, you have to go through a week-long course.
Yep.
If you're in management.
Listen, if
So-
people out there don't think that everybody should have some sort of mandatory training on how to use a weapon, couple hours of training, then I don't know where we go from here as a society. I really don't. I'm trying to be reasonable. I think everybody has the right to bear arms. I've never said the opposite of that. Everybody that is not a felon, you should be, if it's legal, you should be allowed to defend
You know,
yourself.
a lot of people want to go back to 1891.
It's great. I mean, I don't understand. And by the way, and thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate you. The right-wing talking points of Democrats want to take all your guns away is a lie. Just like when they say Democrats are praising the CEO shooter, they couldn't name me one prominent Democrat that's done so. There's not one prominent Democrat. I know Beto O'Rourke personally. I've had a few private conversations. He's a great guy. He doesn't want to take the Second Amendment away from you. It's a lie. And you won't find somebody more passionate about gun control than Beto O'Rourke. They want some of the things that I want, quite frankly, that we want.
But there's 76 million people in this country that hear that and believe it immediately.
They don't want to take all your guns away. You know that, Leonard. It's
They
like,
believe it.
It's insanity. And it's a lie. 702-221-7283. Darlene is next. Hey, Darlene, what's going on?
Oh my God, Brian. First of all, I came in late, but I caught some of you guys. Anyway, I agree with you, Brian, and the guy sitting there. But I have something to say to David. It amazes me. David is like, oh my God, it's our right. Don't take our right away from us. And then the next thing you know, don't take our right away from us. And I was like, he is so worried about an AR-15. Don't take my right from me. But us women can get all our damn rights taken away from us.
Such a good point,
Now,
that
I know
Darlene. Darlene, that is such a good point you
Oh.
just mentioned, and I want to stay on the line. I want to emphasize what Darlene is saying. So on one side of things, Second Amendment, it's our right, but yet when it comes to a woman's body, it's not our right. Let the government decide. Or if you want to get an abortion, you have to travel 8 hours to another state. That's the way these people think. And mostly men, by the way, think this way. They don't know what it's like to be pregnant. They don't know what it's like to have a child. They don't know what it's like to have to make a very difficult decision of getting an abortion. They also don't know what it's like to have to carry a rape baby or a victim of incest. But they're totally okay, some of these people, with telling you, Darlene, what to do with your body. But then when it comes to guns, from my dead bare hands, you know.
And they got away with it because it was one of their platforms in the presidential
I mean, but
election.
that's all he knew what to say. He couldn't answer your questions.
No.
He couldn't answer them.
Well, I do
And
find
I'm
it.
like, I
yeah.
agree with you guys.
Listen, we can disagree on gun control issues. What I find, again, and I keep repeating myself, very problematic, is those two gentlemen who called into this show who definitely disagree with us. They didn't have one solution. They didn't even come up with something. I don't have to agree with their solutions. They have nothing. Just like, let me tell you something. Those two people who called in, are where the MAGA Republican Party is today. They bitch and complain about stuff. They could be talking about immigration. They could be talking about any issues that we're facing as a nation, healthcare, but they have concepts of a plan. In fact, the callers didn't even have concepts of a plan.
No.
They didn't have anything,
Can I make a
Darlene.
comment to Darlene?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think it's reasonable to make it illegal to be able to buy gun parts online and put together your own gun that no one knows about and it's not tracked and it's not registered, or to get a 3D printer and be able to print parts of a gun and put your own gun together that's not traceable and no one knows about? Because those kinds of laws, to me, are common sense laws. Those are things you could pressure elected officials into getting on board with. But everybody's taking a big bite and saying, let's go do away with AR-15s. That may happen one day, but we're a long way away from that. So why don't we get the low-hanging fruit and take some of the legislation that's possible to pass?
I agree.
I don't think ghost guns I think they should be illegal in every state.
Darlene, go ahead.
No, I just agree with y'all. I'm just listening.
Yeah.
Because I'm learning so much myself, from Brian's show.
Well, we learn.
I call in all the time, and people don't realize I'm 63. This was the first year I've only voted twice in my life.
Well, Darlene, if I can
learned all about politics listening to Brian.
Well, thank you. Darlene, if I can do one thing on this show and we can learn together that the MAGA Republicans are getting dumber and dumber by the day. I learned just like you learned. 702-221-7283. Let's go to David. David is next up on PTL. David, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian, thank you. So, when you look at total gun deaths pretty much every year in the U.S., only a small fraction of them are by assault rifles or rifles. So if banning guns equates less gun deaths, then why not ban handguns?
I would have to look that up, but I don't believe that's accurate.
Well, here's what I do.
Matter of fact, I think AR-15 is responsible for most of the mass shootings.
Yeah, correct.
No, that's not true. The majority of mass shootings are by handguns because it depends on how you define a mass shooting.
Okay,
and the majority of mass shootings are by handguns.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
In 2023, 500 people were murdered by rifles.
Right. So let me ask you. I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
The biggest mass shootings in the history of this country. What is usually the gun of choice?
Usually an AR-15.
Thank
or some
you.
Type of rifle.
That's what we're talking about here. Now,
but
listen.
in totality, the amount of gun deaths are by handguns. So why not ban handguns?
So if you want to cause the most damage in the shortest period of time, there is no question that assault weapons will do more damage than your typical handgun. Point number 2. I'm with you, David, in a sense that gun violence is gun violence, right? Innocent people dying are innocent people dying. We don't want that to happen. But again, it goes back to what I ask a lot of people that might disagree with me. They might disagree with Leonard. I want to know what your solutions are. I try to come up with solutions. Doesn't mean you're going to agree with me on everything. What are your solutions? If you don't think we should have an assault weapons ban, okay, what should we do, David?
What should we do? We should allow. Correct about what?
You're correct. More of the majority of handguns than rifles have been involved in mass shootings.
An enormous amount.
Biggest mass shootings, but okay, we agree on that. But and I knew he was right. But the biggest mass shootings in this country are not used with handguns. But anyway, David, go ahead and answer if you can. I want to know what some of your solutions are. Go ahead.
Some of my solutions would be allowing open carry and allowing people to have easier access to handguns so they can defend themselves. Because when you look at where gun crimes are, it's not evenly spread out throughout the country. It's in certain areas, particularly areas with high amounts of gang crimes, and that's where the majority of guns, again, going back to handguns.
So, David,
really
your solution is more.
legal.
So your solution,
the solution is
more
regular
guns.
Americans can hold on.
Right. So more guns.
For regular Americans who aren't criminals,
Understood.
and if they're being attacked by somebody, they can defend them.
Okay. So your solution, in theory, is more guns make us safer. Then.
I wouldn't necessarily say more guns because we have more guns than
but
people
that's what
already.
you're saying.
I'm saying access to people have access
well,
to those
if
guns.
you give people
because in some areas
David, hang on, just hear me out on this, okay, my friend?
Sure.
If you're saying you want to give people easier access to legally purchase guns and carry them in public, hence that means, with common sense, you believe more guns make us safer. The reason why I disagree with you is because we have about 140 guns per 100 people in this country. We've already know that based on statistics that more guns do not make us safer. So I'm trying to understand why you think they do.
If less guns make us safe, then why not ban handguns? Because they kill most people every year.
Handguns are guns, okay? They are guns. If you look at some of the safest countries in the world when it comes to gun violence, they almost don't have guns altogether. We are one of the most dangerous countries in the world when it comes to gun violence. We also are, I believe, last stat I checked, top 3 in the world for most guns in a single country. And David, the reason why I disagree with you is because you're saying we need to make it easier for people to get their hands on guns and open carry in public. And I disagree with you because the statistics show more guns do not make us safer based on stats.
A lot has to do with media.
But then
and
again,
politics.
that goes back to
because
then
well,
why
let me just
shouldn't
interrupt you
handguns
real
be
quick,
banned?
David, because every time there's an AR-15 used, it's the first thing you see, on the news. Assault rifle. And so I think some of it is politics and some of it is the media, but
I agree.
it sounds
I
like
agree.
but how do you go after handguns? I mean, what do you ban? Certain guns or certain calibers? I mean, how would you even approach that?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't support banning handguns, but my point is, if you want to save lives by banning guns, then wouldn't logically you'd say, well, we have to ban the guns that are responsible for the most deaths of people?
No,
in
not
the country,
necessarily.
and that's handguns.
Not necessarily. I would say that we need
Why is
to
that?
we need to do something when it comes to people selling guns to others illegally, people that own guns illegally, people that sell guns illegally. We need to raise the age. As I've said before, we need to have mandatory training. So all these things combined, pick or choose, would make us safer when it comes to all
Raising the age
guns.
is not necessarily going to make things safer. I mean, the majority of gun crime are by a lot of gang members who, from 16 to whatever age.
When you look at
these,
when you look at virtually almost every single one of these school shootings, they are not carried out by gang members. If you look at the biggest mass shootings in the history of this country, they are overwhelmingly not done by gang members. Now, listen, a shooting is
but
a shooting.
Shootings is a different subject from shooting.
It's gun control and it's gun violence. Why is it a different subject?
Let me interrupt. Let me make a point about handguns. You have to remember the statistic that you're throwing out is over a long period of time, right? So over a long period of time, handguns have the higher percentage. However, if you narrow it down to the last maybe couple of years or more recent history, you might find that rifles are used not more often, but more often than they used to be.
Oh, I think they are used more often than they used to be. But as for 2020, rifles were, in terms of being murdered by a rifle, they were accounted for 3% of total murder.
Well, David, hang on.
I'm not saying that's a
okay. So,
happy
David,
number.
hang on for time constraints here. So, you came up with a solution. At least you came up with something, even though I disagree with you. So, at least I give you credit for that. But we're going to agree to disagree. No, I don't think more guns make us safer. Do you have any other solutions you'd want to bring up that you think?
Can I make one point? If you made it harder to get handguns, extremely hard, the criminals would still be able to buy them on the street for a couple of $100s. So making it harder, maybe we should focus on the criminals and not focus on the people who can legally buy guns.
I think we can do both, but I hear what you're saying, Leonard.
Oh, I agree. And then that caller before was saying how people like, the mayor of Chicago were making it very difficult for cops to actually handle these criminals. So I agree with you, but unfortunately, it seems like it's Democrats that are making it harder to actually combat these people who are using guns illegally, because it's not regular Americans that are going around killing people. It's primarily gangbangers and gang violence. That's the real issue.
Why would you say?
How do you tie that in? How does the Democrats affect what the gangs do in a place like Chicago, for instance? How does that translate?
Because they're restricting cops' abilities by either cutting their funding or not allowing them to tackle these gangs properly, and they're basically putting a chokehold on a lot of police officers. Lori Lightfoot, she made it very difficult in Chicago for cops to handle these rampant gang problems.
They're not cutting budgets. What they're doing is they're allocating funds to other precincts that need better training. So I would disagree with your characterization. But
there's a shift in police work.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to Cyrus. Cyrus is next on PTL. Hey, Cyrus, what's going on?
Hey, I hope you're doing well. It was a little random topic, but what bills do you hope that the state legislature will try to get passed? What type of issues do you want the legislature to cover?
You mean state or federal?
State, Carson City. So I think that one thing is, I'm not that much of a minimum wage guy, but I think the minimum wage should be pegged to inflation.
Well, I'll tell you what, Cyrus, here's what I would prefer you do. I would prefer you call back tomorrow because it's a little bit off topic. We're talking about gun control, Cyrus, with all due respect, and we're running out of time.
Okay. But we used to have to register our guns in Nevada. We no longer have to do that.
Yeah, that's true. 702-221-7283. Cyrus, give me a call back tomorrow. I got 1 minute for Tracy. Tracy, go right ahead.
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
I don't think the citizens of the United States need guns at all. I mean, we have tasers. You can protect yourself. You can protect yourself in this country without killing people. Take the guns away. People in this country are too entitled. They can't handle that kind of responsibility. In 2 hours worth of training? No, that's ridiculous.
Wait, are you saying that Donald Trump?
I'm 82nd Airborne. I'm a veteran. I've handled guns. I know. I've been trained more than anybody. And the officer, I respect your service, but you think like a cop.
Thank you for your service.
You know, you can have gun clubs where you can go and play with your guns and even hunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but your
Leave those
proposal,
guns right on that
Tracy,
facility.
Tracy, let me just say your proposal is an ideology. Okay, your proposal is something that you hope for or wish for, and that's not a logical solution. It certainly doesn't have any basis in anything legal in the system. But yes, as an ideology, that's what you happen to believe. But it's non-specific, and it's not getting to the point to where what can we do? It doesn't answer the question, what can we do about this?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think necessarily that Leonard thinks like a cop. I think he thinks like a concerned citizen who has a lot of experience with policing. I think there's a difference there. And that's why I wanted Leonard on the show today, Leonard. And I'm glad you came out here. And
Thank you for inviting me.
We could probably do another 2 hours of calls.
And thank you for your service, Tracy.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. We could do another 2 hours of calls. We just don't have the time. So I'm sorry for people that are waiting on hold. I just can't do it. Also want to thank Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Check them out. Pass the Puck contest during Vegas Golden Knights.
I'm going there tonight.
It's an awesome spot, by the way. $500 you could win in free slot play. I've hit some jackpots there over time.
Really?
Great food, great atmosphere. One of the coolest local bars in town, Jackson's Bar and Grill. I got to take Leonard out there for lunch next time. I got work
Are the
to do
machines
today.
loose? I like loose
They
machines.
are. They are. They are. Maybe not as loose as Lauren Boebert, but they are loose. Oh, hey now. Yes, I am going to be attending the NBA Cup Finals tonight.
Let's go.
The Milwaukee Bucks are in town, and they are facing the Oklahoma City Thunder, so I'm going to be excited. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to have some fireworks. If you didn't have enough today, a very popular right-wing podcaster has agreed to debate me tomorrow on the show. I'm going to save it and put it on social media later tonight, who that will be. But we have a popular right-wing podcaster that's going to be debating me tomorrow, so I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be fun. No, it's not Al the caller or any of the other MAGA callers that are calling in.
Should be a fairly easy show.
It should be fun. Tomorrow's going to be fun. But no, Leonard, I appreciate your service and thanks for what you do. I'm just a little upset that you forgot your wife's cookies that you were supposed to send
Sorry,
me
honey.
today, but that's okay. That's okay. Next
I'll
time.
bring them by next
time. Fair enough. Check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. Again, pushingthelimits.live, where you can donate, support what we do here, buy some merchandise. Again, check it out, pushingthelimits.live. Most importantly, please subscribe to my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show, at PTL Radio Show. My thanks to Leonard Cardinale for joining us. He'll be back very soon, and appreciate all the phone calls, even my special MAGA callers. I love all of you. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a